In this episode of the Dr. Clay Show, we're going to talk about whether or not it is better to visualize winning or doing the work. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whichever one applies. I want to welcome you to the Dr. Clay Show, where in this episode we're talking about the difference between visualizing yourself winning or visualizing the positive outcome, or should you visualize yourself doing the work that it takes to get there. Now, before we go forward, let's make sure that we're on the same page regarding what visualization means. You probably got an idea, of course, but I want to point out that mental simulation is a term that I've seen in the literature quite a bit that is essentially synonymous with visualization. So visualization or mental simulation. Either word or phrase that you choose, they mean the imitative representation of real or hypothetical events. Now, that came out of one of the studies that I looked at, but I want to put that into English for you. And that means that visualization is you imagining either events that have happened in the past or events that may happen in the future. Now, scientists link, and this is scientists in the field of positive psychology. You might want to Google that term, by the way, positive psychology. And they think that visualization works by linking, enhancing the link between our thoughts and us taking action, specifically goal-directed action towards our goals. So in other words, does visualization increase our chance of success? Now, there's not just one type of visualization, of course. There are two different types, or at least two types that we're talking about here. We want to compare these two types of visualization. Now, the type that we are, or at least me, and I would imagine you would be in the same boat, is we tend to think of visualization as outcome-based visualization. In other words, if you want to win the Mr. California, you picture yourself winning. And you picture John Lindsay holding your hand up at the end and having the overall trophy in front of you. That is outcome-based visualization. Or you may finish yourself finishing and going under the finish banner at the end of your marathon or half marathon or whatever, and you visualize the banner going across the finish line and you running under it, and then you picture the clock over here and how it has your wonderful time on it, and so on. All that is outcome-based visualization. And by the way, you might actually just envision looking great as well. That is also outcome-based visualization. Whereas we also have process-based visualization, which is probably a newer one, or at least it's newer to most people. And that is essentially when you visualize doing the work that it's going to take to get there. So process-based is just that, you envisioning the process that it will take to get there as opposed to the outcome. So you might visualize things like 6 a.m. cardio, you might visualize things like 6 healthy meals that you would eat every day, and so on. Or you might even visualize yourself avoiding temptation at a party. Whatever, it's you visualizing something that is part of the process as opposed to the desired outcome itself. Now, one of the studies that we want to look at is from UCLA, and this was done in '99, I believe, and it's called From Thought to Action, Effects of Process versus Outcome-Based Visualization on Performance. Now, what they did here is basically they looked at process-based visualization versus visualizing the desired outcome and how it affected students' test scores. That's what they were looking at here, was test scores. So what they had to do is they had this group of students, the process group, they had them visualize studying, and in detail too, where they would study and how long and so on. And they had this other group simply visualize a positive outcome, like making good grades. Well, which do you think worked better? Here's what they found. Results suggest that envisioning the desired outcome did not prompt effective action to bring about the desired goal. In other words, it did not increase the chance of them doing work. Basically, that's the problem. And it says, in fact, outcome simulation, imagining the positive outcome, can have negative effects on the goal-directed behavior. So what they found in this study was that the group who visualized making good grades, that was their thought process, that's their little thought bubble, they actually had the worst grades. Yeah, the worst grades, but they're the ones who visualized. Whereas this group over here, they thought about, like I said, they thought about studying. Well, how do you think they did? Well, not only, for one, they studied more hours, and by the way, there's no link between the time that you study and the test score, but it sure as heck doesn't hurt. And they think it actually that this number of increased hours of study might boost your confidence, which helps they had the highest scores. Yep, the highest scores were achieved by the people who visualized studying. But we're not interested in test scores, we're interested in weight loss. So let's look at this one that was done in '91 at the University of Pennsylvania. And we're going to look at here the fantasy, and so in other words, the visualization. And so we're talking about a positive visualization, or positive outcome based visualization or fantasy, and then your expectation, meaning whether or not you're positive and really think that you're going to achieve the goal, or if you don't think that you will be able to achieve the weight loss that you want. Let's see how those mindsets varied. Now, the study showed that the worst possible outcome, in other words, not losing the weight and or gaining it back, the worst outcome occurs when you have negative expectations. In other words, you don't think you will succeed, so you're pessimistic. And you combine that with positive fantasies. In other words, you visualizing that you're going to do great. When you combine those two, you get the worst outcome, whereas you get the best possible outcome when you have positive expectations. That was the results of this study that we just talked about, the 91 study. That's what they found. The group that lost the most weight was the group that expected to. And that's precisely, I've seen this happen in myself and with my coaching others for years. And that's why I came up with this phrase that I email and say to clients all the time, and that is expect success. Because the person that expects to succeed is the person that does. Oh, this study, from that Oat Engine study, here's what they found. Here's some of the quotes. Subjects who reported very positive fantasies, really thinking good and feeling good about the positive outcome and visualizing themselves being lean, they appeared to daydream that weight loss would occur effortlessly and without suffering. And we know that is not true. So they went on to say that wishful thinking did little to facilitate successful weight loss in short term or long term. In fact, the hopeful fantasies were particularly harmful to people that thought that their chances of success were low. So again, it's combining that wishful thinking with not thinking that you can achieve the goal. And that wishful thinking what it tends to do is to make people think that it is going to occur effortlessly and without suffering. And therefore, you have the wrong mental preparation. And then you're going to be likely to quit and not succeed. So that is the wrong type of mindset to have. You've got to be realistic with how hard it's going to be. So, my friend, you need to visualize yourself doing this as opposed to already looking great like this. Because when you combine visualizing your goal with pessimism and not thinking that you can get there, then you're going to end up like this. You're going to be like a dog chasing your tail, and you're never going to get the progress that you want because you're visualizing the outcome and you're thinking that's going to be easy because you're visualizing that goal and it's tricking you, yet you're really not confident that you can. And it makes you like this, my friend. Whereas on the other hand, if you will visualize the process and you combine that with optimism, knowing that you will succeed and expecting to succeed, then, my friend, you will end up feeling like this. Yeah, I rocked it, man.